Look at your life carefully. The silence, the empty room, the messages that stopped, the plans that collapsed so fast you still replay them at night like your mind is trying to reverse a fire. Maybe you lost the relationship. Maybe the money vanished. Maybe your name was dragged through the dirt. Maybe you built your whole identity on something that is no longer there. And now you feel stripped, humiliated, directionless, like life picked you out and crushed you in public. But read this carefully. Losing everything is not always a curse. Sometimes it is an extraction, a brutal removal of everything weak, borrowed, false, and dependent. Most people break here. They beg for their old life back. But a different kind of person understands something terrifying. When you have nothing left to protect, you finally become dangerous enough to rebuild from truth. When people lose everything, they usually ask the wrong question. They ask, "Why is this happening to me?" As if rock bottom is some cruel punishment designed to break them. But most of the time, collapse is not punishment. It is exposure. It does not create weakness out of nowhere. It reveals the weakness that was already there, quietly hidden beneath comfort, routine, distraction, ego, and illusion. That is what makes failure feel so unbearable. It is never just about what ended. It is about what was revealed. The breakup reveals how much of your identity was built around being chosen. The financial collapse reveals how fragile your discipline really was. The betrayal reveals how badly you wanted to believe instead of see. The humiliation reveals how much of your worth was tied to the opinions of people who were never going to save you. Failure exposes the fragile architecture of your life. It shows you where you were dependent instead of disciplined, where you were fantasizing instead of preparing, where you trusted appearances instead of patterns, where you relied on charm without competence, hope without strategy, emotion without self-control. It reveals laziness you renamed burnout, naivety you called kindness, attachment you called love, weakness you disguised with status, money, relationships, or approval. And that is why the pain feels so personal. You are not only grieving the event itself, you are grieving the image you had of yourself before it happened. The version of you that thought you were safe, in control, smarter than this, stronger than this, beyond this. People suffer twice, first from the fall, then from the mirror the fall forces in front of them. But this is where power begins. Because once you stop treating collapse like random cruelty, you can finally read it as information. And information can be used. The problem is, most people never use it, because they waste the most important stage of the comeback. After collapse, most people make the same mistake. They rush to be seen. They explain. They post. They vent. They call people who were never loyal. They write paragraphs trying to correct the story, defend their name, or force closure from people who already made their decision. In that state, it feels natural. You want relief. You want someone to witness your pain and tell you that you were wronged, that you were good, that you did not deserve what happened. But that instinct, as human as it is, often destroys the very dignity you need to rebuild. Because the world is full of spectators pretending to be supporters. The moment you perform your pain, you give your collapse an audience. And audiences do what audiences always do. They watch, they whisper, they analyze, they compare, and some of them quietly enjoy the fact that you are falling apart in public. Bleeding in public may feel honest, but it makes you easy to study. The people who envy you will remember your weakness. The people who doubted you will feel confirmed, and the people you thought would save you may only come closer to inspect the damage. This is why wounded people often make their situation worse. They leak their emotions to the exact world that has no intention of protecting them. Nobody destroys a fallen man faster than the crowd he thought would save him. So, if you have lost everything, do not announce your collapse. Do not narrate your ruin in real time. Pain needs space, not a stage. Your first act of power is silence. If you have just lost something real, do not pretend to be unaffected. Grief is human. Denial is stupid. If your heart is broken, if your future feels shattered, if your pride has been crushed, then feel it. Cry if you need to. Rage. Write. Pray. Shut the door. Sit in the dark. Let the weight of it hit you honestly, but give it a limit. Give yourself 24 hours to break, then end the ceremony. Because pain deserves acknowledgement, not permanent residence. The danger is not in grieving. The danger is in turning grief into identity. If you stay in that state too long, you stop saying, "Something bad happened to me," and you start becoming the person to whom bad things always happen. That is where self-pity becomes a throne, and once you sit on it long enough, you forget how to stand. Grief gets a window, not a throne. Mourn what died. But do not build your house in the graveyard. Your pain is real. Your permanent collapse is a decision. After that window closes, the role of victim must die, even if part of you still wants to keep replaying the wound. Because once the emotion cools, the real work begins. The autopsy. Once the emotion settles, you must do the one thing most broken people avoid. Study the failure with cold eyes, not to torture yourself, not to drown in regret, but to extract truth. Because if you do not study your failure, you will repeat it wearing a different outfit. The names will change, the setting will change, the pain will feel new, but the pattern will be the same. Sit down and separate the collapse like a surgeon. What was bad luck? What was poor judgment? What was emotional weakness? What skill was missing? What warning did you ignore because you wanted the fantasy more than the truth? What red flags did you excuse because being chosen felt better than being safe? What part of your identity made you vulnerable? Your need for approval, your fear of conflict, your laziness, your pride, your refusal to prepare. These are not comfortable questions, but comfort is not the goal now. Clarity is. Pain is loud, but evidence is quiet. The ego wants a villain. The comeback requires a report. You do not need a comforting story. You need an accurate one. And that is where most people fail. They would rather protect their pride than confront the architecture of their collapse. They keep calling themselves unlucky because the truth feels too sharp. But read this carefully. Your enemy didn't destroy you. Your lack of preparation did. That line is hard to hear, but it is also liberating. Because if your downfall was shaped by your blind spots, then your future can be shaped by your correction. And that means the power is back in your hands. Failure does not break everyone the same way. It filters them. One person comes out of ruin louder, needier, more dramatic, obsessed with being understood, desperate to prove that the world was unfair. The other comes out quieter, harder to read, more disciplined, more observant, more precise. That is the hidden function of collapse. It reveals what kind of mind is being built in the fire. Some people use pain to perform. Others use pain to evolve. One becomes theatrical. The other becomes dangerous. One hardens the ego. The other sharpens the mind. And that decision is not made years from now. It is being made right here in how you interpret what happened to you. Your next identity is being decided now, not by the loss itself, but by what the loss is turning you into. After failure, one of the strongest urges is to stay visible, to keep explaining yourself, to keep updating people, to keep proving that you are fine, healing, growing, moving on. But that urge is poison. You cannot reinvent yourself while staying available to the same noise that broke you. Distance is not weakness here. It is medicine. It is strategy. It is protection. Stop updating everyone. Stop seeking reassurance from people who do not have the power to rebuild your life. Stop trying to prove you are okay before you actually are. That performance drains the very energy you need to reconstruct yourself. Every conversation, every post, every check-in, every glance at what others are doing keeps you emotionally tied to the version of you that just collapsed. And as long as you remain tied to that version, you cannot build a new one. Reinvention is almost impossible in front of an audience. The caterpillar does not live stream the cocoon. Your comeback is weakened every time you explain it before it exists. So, withdraw. Remove yourself from distraction, humiliation loops, social comparison, and emotional leakage. Let silence do what noise never could. Give you room to hear yourself again. Give you room to think without defending. Give you room to rebuild without being watched. And understand this clearly. Disappearance is not depression. It is strategic isolation. It is temporary, intentional, and aimed at one thing: reconstruction. But silence alone is not enough. If you disappear without rebuilding, you don't become powerful. You become forgotten. Let's be honest about something most people are too fake to admit. When you lose everything, you do not just feel sadness, you feel anger, you feel humiliation. You replay faces, words, betrayals, dismissals. Part of you wants to prove them wrong. Part of you wants them to watch you rise after they counted you out. That feeling is real. Do not lie to yourself about it. Pretending not to feel anger is not maturity, it is avoidance. In the early stage, spite can be useful. It can wake you up when grief makes you heavy. Humiliation can create discipline. Being underestimated can sharpen your work ethic. Many people begin their rebuild because something inside them refuses to remain the version the world just rejected. That fire has value, but only if you understand its limits. Spite is a battery, not a belief system. Let humiliation ignite you, but do not let it drive. Rage can start the engine. It cannot hold the steering wheel, because the moment anger becomes your identity, your judgment starts rotting. You stop rebuilding for strength and start performing for revenge. You become reactive, obsessive, and emotionally owned by the very people you claim to have outgrown. That is not power. That is dependency in a darker costume. So use the fire, but do not worship it. Let it move you off the floor. Let it push you into the gym, the work, the discipline, the silence. Then outgrow it. Because the highest form of recovery is not revenge. It is mastery. Now we reach the part that separates fantasy from real transformation. A comeback is not emotional, it is structural. It is not a mood, it is not a quote. It is not one dramatic decision at 2 a.m. when you swear you'll change. It is a rebuild of the systems that created your life. And if you do this correctly, the goal is not to recover the old life. The goal is to become someone the old disaster could never have destroyed. Start with the body. Rebuild discipline, posture, energy, and nervous system control. If your body is weak, your mind will feel every hit more deeply. Then rebuild competence. Skills, money, focus, craft, leverage become harder to replace, become harder to destabilize. Build value that does not depend on somebody believing in you. Then rebuild standards. Decide who gets access to you now. Decide what behavior you will never tolerate again. Decide which patterns end here. Desperation, overtrusting, laziness, emotional dependency, self-betrayal. And finally, rebuild identity. No more fragile self-image. No more dependence on applause. No more addiction to external validation. You must become someone whose center is internal. Do not ask how to get your old life back. Ask what kind of man would never lose it that way again. A comeback is not cosmetic. It is architectural. If you rebuild only the surface, life will break you again at the foundation. But if you rebuild deeply, this collapse will become the moment your real self was finally constructed. When it is finally time to re-enter the world, Resist the old temptation to speak too soon. Do not announce your transformation while it is still fragile. Do not post declarations. Do not give the world a trailer for a version of you that has not fully arrived. Quiet work loses power the moment it becomes premature performance. The strongest comeback is not loud. It is undeniable. Let people notice what changed without your help. Let your discipline become visible through contrast. Let them see the posture, the restraint, the focus, the standards, the absence of need. Let them feel that something is different before they can explain what it is. This is why silent rebuilding is so powerful. When you return without noise, your presence starts doing the talking for you. Your energy is steadier. Your reactions are cleaner. Your choices are sharper. Your boundaries are stronger. You no longer chase, beg, explain, or overexpose. And that difference speaks louder than any speech ever could. The best revenge is not noise. It is distance between who you were and who you became. Do not return with speeches. Return with weight. Return with competence. Return with self-control. Return with proof that the person who broke down is no longer the person standing here now. The world should feel your comeback before it hears your explanation, because real transformation does not need dramatic language to be believed. It carries its own evidence, and when your results arrive before your words, people stop hearing a wounded voice trying to be respected and start confronting a rebuilt person they can no longer ignore. What happens after this moment is up to you. You can go back to being the person life broke, or you can become the person pain could not destroy. If you are choosing the second path, type "I will rise" in the comments. Not as motivation, as a decision, as a vow that the weaker version of you ends here. And subscribe if you are ready to rebuild yourself with discipline, truth, and relentless action. Because on this channel, we do not glorify pain. We use it. We turn it into strength, power, and proof.